This is Flick.
This is Rudy.
And this week we'll be talking about covers that are better than the originals, even though the originals are awesome.
That is a tall order. We are also going to have our third banality draft. I would say by far the hardest of the three so far. Today, the banality draft. Yeah, the banality draft is for Van Hagar. That will be coming up soon. I think before we want to ease our way in. I don't think there's no way we could cold start with something like a Van Hagar banality draft. I think
no.
we have to.
you don't just jump off the cliff.
No, I think it's much more appropriate we ease in and talk a little bit about what we've been listening to for the last week or so, just what sort of our current playlists and current musical tastes, where they're steered and where they're taking us right now. As we talked about a little bit in the prep for today's show, I am feeling a little bit a twinge of guilt on going in so hard on the Cars' Heartbeat City. Obviously, with Ric Ocasek's passing, we talked about the Cars last week, and I don't think I made a convincing case of what a big Cars fan I am, and that's because I went in so hard on Heartbeat City. The only thing I can say in my defense is it wouldn't have been worth it to go in on Door to Door. There's absolutely no reason to spend a bunch of time, debating whether or not Door to Door was dated 80s music. But I do think, I think there's a legitimate argument there, but I have gone back this week and I have tried to spend some time with that album. And I also, just after talking about the Cars so much, and I'm still reading stuff here and there about Ric Ocasek's passing, I did spend a lot of time with the Cars this week. And I went deep enough in the catalog that I would say my gem of the week, and it's actually appropriate given our topic today of covers better than the original. I am not prepared to say that the cover is better than the original, but I am going to rep hard this week for Aimee Mann's cover of Drive, which is, that is the most listened to Cars song on Spotify by a mile. And Ben Orr was a great vocalist, and he probably deserves a show of his own. We just talk about Ben Orr. He was a great bassist. He was a great singer. Had a great look. He really just having two lead singers and how he handled that. There's a lot there. But Aimee Mann, who I am predisposed to liking. I find myself listening to Coming Up Close by Till Tuesday all the time, and it's not just because it's about Iowa, but neither here nor there on that. I found her cover of Drive, which I hadn't heard until this week, and that has been on super heavy rotation. Her delivery, the mastery of her delivery, I think cannot be overstated. She not only does the female vocalization add a totally different layer, but her delivery sort of Ben Orr has always had this sort of deadpan, dead-eyed, just slack to it. And, he did that on this sort of overproduced 80s synth ballad. And he, as domineering as that production is, his voice just absolutely takes command and owns that thing. For her to be able to do the same thing, it's just her and a guitar. I'm absolutely blown away by it. And I've spent, I think that's probably my most listened to song for the week. Now, I did put it in a mix where immediately following it goes into the Melvins version of Candy-O. I don't know if you've heard the Melvins version of Candy-O. Probably not the greatest transition there, but even then, the Melvins get by on bombast. They're very over the top, but it's amazing how Aimee Mann's voice and her arrangement and her delivery it cuts just as hard. So that. If I was to, I don't mean to bring the subject back up again and go and hit the repeat button on the Cars. I'm willing to let it go after this, but I gotta say, if you haven't heard Aimee Mann's cover of Drive, dig that out and give it a few spins. It absolutely delivers. I probably got another week of intense listening ahead on that one.
Okay, and is that something that is on Spotify and we can put that up on the playlist?
Yes, it's from a movie soundtrack. It's from, it's a one-off. It's from a film from FX called The Assassination of Gianni Versace.
Okay.
I normally don't go trolling for covers and stuff like that. I just happened to see it. And wow, can't recommend it. It's a couple years old. I don't know how I missed it. It's effing great.
Well, speaking of Aimee Mann and covers, she has a few good ones. She had a really good version of Baby Blue on a Badfinger tribute album from '96. So we're sidebarring early on Aimee Mann covers.
But that's a good one. I don't mind I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind doing that in this case because again, you know, she I think has had to live down the Voices Carry video, and you know, I have to say it is painful to watch, but
she did her own parody of that, which was great.
Yeah, but you know, that second Till Tuesday album was about as clean a break from that as I think you can do in her case. You know what I'm saying? Like, she absolutely would not wear that in perpetuity. She pretty much fought back right away, and she did so she delivers the goods. Like, I'm not a huge Till Tuesday fan. I don't listen to any of their stuff end to end. I think they've only got 3 or 4 albums anyway. But you just she was no joke. She was no joke, and I think
she is no joke. She continues to be no joke.
Yeah. You know, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, so sidebarring on the sidebar. A few years ago, I saw the Both, which is Aimee Mann with Ted Leo, and they finished out the set with Voices Carry, which was pretty great.
Wow.
And so another couple of covers that come to mind right off the bat. She was on a few tribute albums in the 90s. There was a James Bond tribute album called Shaken and Stirred, where she did a really good version of Nobody Does It Better. She was on a Harry Nilsson tribute album where she covered One, which is great. This is really tough to find, but she was on a Ram, Paul McCartney's Ram tribute album that the Best Show on WFMU put out for the WFMU fundraiser that year, where she covered Too Many People. And she has a lot of great covers.
I highly recommend the Melvins cover of Let Me Roll It. That'll end my sidebar on that.
Wow. Okay. You're breaking news on me there.
Yeah, bringing it all back home. Yeah, you know, the Melvins are good for a cover or two per album. And again, I mean, it's one of those things. I'm predisposed to digging them, so I rarely find myself put off too much by a Melvins cover. Do you think Spotify, and do you think sort of the modern, the modern ethics, certainly like millennial tastes? I have to say, I feel like covers have like that sort of like jokey acoustic cover of an otherwise like super intense song as a genre has sort of been beaten to death. Normally, the number of cover records that are on Spotify is astronomically high. Do you know the band Surfer Blood? Are you familiar with them? They're from Florida. Their first album, like, they do like one of the best Brian Wilson ripoffs I've ever heard. They put out a covers album this week. Juliana Hatfield has put out like 2 of the last 3 records of hers have been covers. The most recent one is all Police covers. Strongly recommend the da-da-da cover. And then she did an entire album of Olivia Newton-John covers, and it's end-to-end great. That's been in heavy rotation for me too lately, is the Juliana Hatfield covers. She's done great covers throughout her career too. Temptation Eyes was great. Even back in like the Blake Babies era, she's done tons of good covers.
Yeah.